21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
I'm Mandy Gilbert. I'm founder and CEO of a specialized recruitment company called Creative Niche. It's purely specialized in advertising, marketing, digital design. So we work with all kinds of different companies in Canada and the US. I started it back in 2002. So I'm in my 19th year almost.
Excuse me, before 2008?
Yeah, exactly.
2002. So
yeah, that's a chapter in the book, for sure.
It is. Okay.
So yeah, that created a ton of gray hairs and sleepless nights for sure. That lovely year. I'm also an investor, and I am a columnist with Inc. So I have a weekly column with Inc. where I talk about all things relating to building culture, some HR topics, so mostly around hiring and retaining great talent, as well as some entrepreneurial topics that really range. I'm also a mom to two amazing boys, 15 and 12-year-old guys, and so it's a big life.
And your day is actually 48 hours.
Some of my days do feel like 48 hours, for sure. When I'm engaged and I'm super busy, when I'm having like a distracted day, it probably is that long, but probably not very productive.
Do you have time for any sport activities or meditation or?
I'm normally quite active. But in Toronto, like many places, we've been shut down for quite some time. But pre-COVID, so during COVID, I managed to kind of get in shape and really move the needle in some areas. And then I managed to really get out of shape and totally neglect it. So there's not been a ton of consistency. But before that, I was pretty active. I've always loved tennis. And so I kind of made a commitment last year that if I don't invest more time in training, and if I keep putting it off, then when I do make time, I might not be able to move as well. So I was getting into tennis, and I was actually kind of getting good, and so I'm going to have to kind of do a restart.
Maybe you can play it on PlayStation or Xbox.
Yeah.
Just to keep up with
Just to keep up. So now, like so many people, especially those that are running businesses and also homeschooling, finding that balance and trying to differentiate, your work life from your home life at your home when there's so much going on has been incredibly difficult. I'm going to be honest, I haven't had much of a routine. In fact, because I work with so many executives and CEOs in my role, many of them aren't traveling like they used to. So they're really diving deeper into their work. And so, we're so fortunate and grateful, but we are so busy. We are so incredibly busy. So I'll say that balance has been tricky as of late and trying to figure out how to navigate our new realities, right? It's been an interesting one, but so no routines on this end.
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, most of people that I spoke with have some kind of routine. So how would you describe it? No routine.
I think
Do you have VA?
I'm actually, diagnosed ADD.
No. Do you have virtual assistant? No.
Oh, no. I just wanted to expand on that because I think that, with that, it is a matter of like, where you get your energy and changing things up a lot. So a lot of my days don't look necessarily like the other. In terms of my support, I have a ton of support. Actually, it's a chapter in my book just talking about the importance of not only investing in yourself, but investing in hiring a fabulous executive assistant to help you focus on the things that you really should be focusing on, and not dropping too much down into scheduling, and executing some things within the business, and helping you even in your personal life. It's been instrumental to me, and I'm a huge advocate that at a certain point for every entrepreneur should definitely make that investment. It's a game changer. Yeah, so I'm super fortunate to have such a great support system.
How would you define your inner state? Is it a peaceful one? Do you feel peace, or do you have different state based on
Well,
I
in
mean
my
on a daily
my
basis?
intro, I talked a little bit about my life. So I do have a very big life. I have a lot of going on. So in addition to that, I'm mentoring anywhere between 10 and 15 entrepreneurs. I sit on a couple of boards. I'm a very active member within YPO. So I will say that, um, my inner state would be one definitely of peace. I'm usually working on something that gives me energy, and if I'm working on something that's not giving me energy at this state in my career, in my life, I will either discontinue it or I will delegate it, because you need that to fuel, I think, your fire and your ability to think creatively, and your ability to kind of give value back to yourself, but to your company, to all aspects of your life. And so for me, I like I said, I'm almost in my 19th year. I've had to weather many of storms, some more significant than others, and I've had to grow up as an entrepreneur and become a better leader, and just become a lot more self-aware. So at this point in my career, there's not too much that rattles me, or creates some imbalance there. And I'm usually trying to always look at what could be down the line. What are things we need to take into consideration? Do we need to triage the business? Do we need to triage the relationship? What kind of contingencies can we put in place? What's in our control? What's out of our control? Just so you can kind of make sure that you do maintain that peace of mind, and you're working with reality versus worst case scenario in your mind.
What kind of personality traits and skills entrepreneur need to have for being successful one? Persistence, focusing, awareness.
Yeah. All of those. And I would say, you have to have a lot of passion, because it's got to carry you through, because you're gonna face rejection. You're gonna face obstacles and late nights, and probably what you project for yourself by a timeline in terms of where you're going to be in success, it's usually less than half in my experience. We can have rose colored glasses on and think like it's going to be amazing, and it just takes 3 times longer to get there, and it's 10 times harder. So you have to have grit. You have to have grit to get through those tough days and overcome obstacles, because what you start out with may change over time based on feedback, based on opportunity, demand. So if you're too set on and rigid, and not wanting to get that feedback, and constantly be served some sort of humble pie in one way or the other, and kind of bounce back and be resilient, it's unless you're signed up for all of that, not what you perceived what an entrepreneur is and all the great things that can come out of it. And there are, for me, I'm so fortunate, and I'm so glad I went down this path. But it's not been easy. It's not been easy. So you've got to really love what you're doing. You have to have an open mind, and you've got to have a ton of grit, and be prepared for maybe perhaps more time to achieve your results and your desired outcomes. It's not an easy path to go, but it can be hugely rewarding, not only for yourself, but for your employees, If you're philanthropically engaged on impact, it could be a great way to contribute back positively to your community or to society. It's a really great thing, but it's not for everyone.
Where is the line between entrepreneurship and corporate world?
Everyone can have an entrepreneurial mindset. And I've seen individuals within companies that are doing really innovative things. They're getting budget to come up with new concepts. They're taking initiative to move things forward. They're sitting on committees to help innovate on the product or the offering. And so I think everyone can have an entrepreneurial mindset. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to think entrepreneurially. I think the line between having a corporate role and being an entrepreneur, big jobs, and they've gone to start businesses, and they started off day one with a huge amount of funding and a really great board and the ability to hire an A team out of the gates. And so I think in that scenario, it could be very successful because they've surrounded themselves by individuals who can help guide them, and they already have a bit of a advisory board. They have financial support to take chances, and if they fail, it's not as though they're not going to not make their payment, and lose their house or what have you. So that scenario I've seen work really well. Or somebody who's left corporate, who had another idea, nothing to do with their job. And I have so many different examples of individuals doing that, and where it was like just a passion, like a pure passion. And it was their passion project. And they just thought, to hell with that. I don't want to work here anymore. I don't like what I do. I don't like the leadership, right? I don't like the inflexibility it offers. I feel stifled, right? And they just go out and they join an entrepreneurial, whether it's an incubator of some sort, or they have some security so they can invest, time and money into their own idea. And, it turns into something amazing. And there's so many incredible stories like that. We think it might be very difficult as for somebody to leave a big corporate job, right? And mostly in corporate jobs, lots of employees, lots of infrastructure. So if you are in marketing per se, you're not thinking about payroll. You're not thinking about, you're not thinking about financial stuff. You're not necessarily, although you might have supported sales, you've never actually picked up a phone or went and had to do a networking event and try to drum up new business, ask for referrals, anything to keep the lights on. So I think that might be a bit of shell shock for somebody to come from so much infrastructure and support and security to being purely exposed, having to do everything and bootstrapping your venture where everything's on the line for you. That might be incredibly difficult, not impossible, but I think that would be a tough one.
And competition from all around the world, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, from platforms, even from platforms like Upwork or Fiverr also goes into the direction of having high ticket offers as well. What's your company market position?
Canada and US. So I believe I do mention this in the book, but I did have an office in Amsterdam for a few years, which I decided it just wasn't working, for a number of reasons. And so focusing more on the US and Canada just made more sense. We've worked in Asia, throughout Europe, and we work with a lot of global clients, whether they're in New York or in Canada. So a lot of global mandates or positions we would fill. I think when you're in the recruitment profession, it does require a unique person, because you work with so many different organizations, and you have to really, I'm talking more on the executive search side. So we have 3 areas that we work, whether it be temporary, full-time, or exec search, and they all have different kind of challenges and ways you work. But, you're doing a ton of interviewing, but more than that, we have a responsibility to really understand what our clients are hoping to achieve. Like, what are their goals? What are some of their challenges? What is aspirational to them? What's not worked? And so you have to have a business brain to get in there and understand, and also coach them, because they might think that they're looking for a certain profile. But once you understand exactly the history and where they want to go, you've got to make recommendations. And so a lot of our role when we're working on senior placements is working with executives and providing them insights, some intel. What are progressive companies doing? What are some other options? What's another way you can tackle this? And coach them along the process. But then we have to go, and we're often working on emerging positions. So it's very much a talent market. You get one shot to talk to the right person. And so, it's our role is to get candidates who are getting contacted constantly. They're not possibly looking for a role. They're gainfully employed, and really sell them, get in front of them and sell them the opportunity, but in a very genuine and transparent and real way. So you're never misrepresenting the opportunity. It is what it is, but we think that you'd be a great candidate for it. And this is why we should talk about it. And so it's really making that match for long-term success is tricky. It's not tricky to send profiles to clients and all of that. It's the quality of job, and it can be exhausting. And also, when you're working with humans, there's always surprises.
Really?
Well,
Surprises.
and hey, there's pleasant surprises for sure, but sometimes you get, deals can fall apart very quickly. You had no idea the candidate was not honest with you, that they had a couple of other offers on the line through another source. And so, that can throw you off. So, that goes back to contingency planning, making sure clients are spoiled for choice. They have a number of different candidates, that they could see hiring. And if not, you have a pipeline to replace it. And so again, that's just through maturity and through going through things, then you innovate internally and you change your process in your way that you work. But as a profession, it's a lot of talking. It's a lot of active listening, and it's a lot of perseverance and creativity. But it's, if you have the right personality for it, it gives you a tremendous amount of energy. It's hugely rewarding. You're advancing careers, you're helping advance businesses, and you make hopefully a positive impact. And then as a business, we do a lot of stuff philanthropically, which is great too. And that gives back in another way.
By the way, when you go shopping, do you analyze people around yourself?
When I go shopping?
Yeah.
No.
Or out to take coffee, or like do you see small clowns with curriculum vitae or bios?
No, I certainly don't. I'm totally checked out. But I will tell you, in social settings, after if anyone's had a glass of wine or something, they want to talk to you, and they almost want an assessment of who they are and would I hire them and would I recommend them, or they want to share with you as soon as they find out what you do. You would be surprised. You feel like a celebrity at an event because people want to talk. This is how much I'm getting paid. Should I move on? What courses should I take? What should be my 5-year plan? And so, yeah, but I will tell you, when I'm on my personal time, I'm totally checked out. I am just in my personal time.
I understand you.
So, yeah, because it's a pretty big, pretty full job. Yeah.
What's the percentage of your day spent on speaking, on communication?
I'm not, we've got a great team. We have around, I think we're at 22 people now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not doing a lot of the interviewing. I'm working more with the executives on more of our more senior mandates or our larger engagements. And, I do have I have days, so talking about routines, one thing that I do when possible is I will cluster like a meeting day. And I will also, like, I will almost make that meeting day back to back. And then after the meeting day, I work with my EA, and if it's possible, my next day will be at least a half, if not 2/3 of the day, I will have no meetings. And so that will allow me to do all my thinking, and oftentimes we don't actually ever book time to think. And it's incredibly important. So, I like to just think. And so sometimes it's, thinking about the conversations, what are some solutions, what's something that we could do down the line, and start kind of working on those, and then get them handed off to a certain point when I'll take them to a certain point, and then I've got to delegate it on to get it completed. So, that's how I'll work: a day of meetings, and then a day of like thinking and actually doing work. If I can, sometimes that's not always possible, but I just find in days in which I have meetings, if I have meeting and then a half-hour window, and as soon as I start to focus on something, I've got to start preparing for another meeting. And so it's really disruptive, and it's not very helpful in feeling like you're effective.
Any challenges?
It's
No,
definitely not, it's now, no, of
no
course there's
challenges.
challenges. Of course, I probably, I'm really loving, working with entrepreneurs. So that's something where I spend some time. And now that my my book is done, which has taken longer than anticipated, it's like a home renovation. It's going to take twice as long and be 40% more. So yeah, so it took a bit longer. I also do a lot of professional speaking, and so that's something I really enjoy and I'd like to do more of. And now, when things resume and we have conferences again and we're back together again, I'm looking forward to doing more of that for sure. Mhm. So there'll be lots in the future. You got to just keep an open mind, right? Not overcommit, yes, but keep an open mind, and yeah. The book was inspired by, after doing so much public speaking over the years, my audience has primarily been entrepreneurs. And I was never one that really thought or really wanted to be a public speaker. It was never on my list. I never went to a conference and thought, oh, I would love to be them on stage. Actually, the opposite.
I want to be one of those weirdos.
Right? So I don't actually enjoy being, the center of attention. I never have. What happened was, I got invited because somebody dropped out to be talking about, hiring or something on a panel. And then I was on that panel, and then I got an invitation to more panels, and then a keynote, and then so many keynotes. And I got signed on for a big company in Canada to go across the country and talk to thousands of entrepreneurs or individuals thinking about being entrepreneurs. And so the reason I did that was because I felt like I was being helpful, because, I share a lot in the book about starting out. I started off on $8,000. I did not go to university. And I had enough to keep me afloat for 6 weeks. That's it. And I didn't have anybody who had money in my network. I don't come from money. My friends didn't have money, nor would I ever ask anybody for a cent. I was very proud, and this was something I took on, and I would never want to put a relationship at risk if it didn't turn out. So that $8,000 loan was really what I had. And so as I went through all of the challenges and having to navigate a ton of complex stuff. And when I mean complex stuff, I'm not talking just about your year end and legal stuff. I'm talking about managing people, growing a business, being a company in which people want to not only do business with, but they want to work at and they want to stay with. And then, throwing in, being a mom, right? There's a ton of factors and there's a ton of things that I went through that I secretly struggled. I felt like a loser most of the time. I either went from one day feeling like, wow, this is going to take off. Amazing, right? I'm going to be able to hire so many people in the next quarter, to the very next day, something falling apart and feeling like, oh my God, are we going to have to sell the house? How embarrassing. This is, everyone knows how hard I've worked and it didn't work out. So you can go from crazy, a dreamy state, the most positive mindset, everything's going to work out and be wonderful, to the next day or the next month feeling like you're failing. And those aren't things that you necessarily call up your friend and go, hey, can you chat about this? Because A, they can't relate. B, you don't really want to burden them with your stuff. And so I carried a lot. I carried a lot on my own. And, that was the motivation for writing the book, is that there are ups and downs. And oftentimes when you buy a book, what is it talking about? I've made it. Look at me. I raised this much. This was my exit. And that's great. But that doesn't actually represent the majority of the entrepreneurs and business owners out there. It's a different story for us. And I wanted a book that was actually real, and that somebody could read and hopefully learn some things that they might want to apply to their business. So something that's practical.
And be in depression for a week or so. Being depressed.
I hope not.
No, I mean, because of all of the failures. Like, oh my God, so I will have so much failures. I am depressed.
No, but it talks about the failures, but also how it feels when you get through it, and how you develop, and how, because you develop, your company develops, your people develop, and things just grow, and they grow in a really healthy way. And so that's what inspired me to write the book, because following a lot of my talks, I would get feedback. I would get like a thank you. Can you talk to me again? Or that, you've really connected with me. I'm feeling really stuck right now. And those types of things. So it was really the purpose of it. And it's really nice to have it done. It's selling really well, and there's been a tremendous amount of support and positive feedback on it. So that was the hope.
Did you had any kind of support? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I worked with Scribe, and they were an incredible partner. Yeah.
And they helped you going.
They helped. They helped capture a lot, and then really though, it's the author that goes and makes it their own. So they do a lot of fact finding. You go through, your timeline, and that was an interesting part of the process, is having to go back and revisit some of the things that were kind of tough and talk about them again. So it was a really great process, and a fantastic experience. And, the hope is that entrepreneurs connect with it and they get some value out of it. When I look back and I think about, what I would have maybe have done earlier or have done differently, I always like to share some thoughts that would be perhaps helpful to listeners who might be, going through an interesting challenge right now. But I mean, one is definitely, as I think that investing in yourself as an entrepreneur is so important, and it's something that tends to get neglected. And I don't mean investing yourself in things, although that can be great too, and go for it if you can afford it. I mean investing in your development. When you're an entrepreneur, you're responsible for signing checks, right? You are paying people. And because of that position that we're in, we often don't get feedback. We actually are walking around mostly with a lot of unawareness of how people actually, feel about us as people, but how are we as leaders? How are we on follow through, on acknowledging people? How do we make them feel? And so when you're not getting that feedback, you're not growing. And I was actually a really insecure young entrepreneur and I wasn't insecure because I was threatened by people I was hiring. I was insecure because I felt like I was inadequate for them. And, I've got these great people and, oh my gosh, am I capable of leading them? Do they like me? And I realized very quickly when I went through leadership training that although my staff liked me, there's a huge difference between being liked and being respected.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't respect me, and I didn't deserve their respect. I was, passive aggressive. I was demanding. I had really high expectations. I would start projects and I wouldn't complete them. I would partially delegate with not a lot of information, actually do something in a good, solid, completed way. And, I wasn't acknowledging people, and they didn't feel as though I was consistent or fair.
Well, it was ego issues related to fear, and there are a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's not just
investing in yourself, investing in leadership development, and creating a culture that thrives on feedback, both giving and receiving it. And, receiving it with gratitude, not with defensiveness, and look for opportunities to grow, but also just understanding where's your sector today, and what do you need to do to stay relevant. Who I was when I started the business and who I am now, although some things remain the same, my sense of humor, my constant ideas that I get, I could still challenge people, and that's okay. Friction is good. Healthy friction is good, and I think great things come out of it. But areas that I've changed is, just how I was showing up. And a lot of the behaviors that my team voiced that they didn't particularly respect or enjoy about me, a lot of that came down to I was being secretive about all of the things that were keeping me up at night. I wasn't sharing because I didn't want to worry them. I didn't want to put my problems on them because I was the entrepreneur. That was my role, to have all these challenges. And as soon as I went to leadership training, I got a lot of feedback from my team, ex-employees, you name it. And some of these shortcomings and issues were brought forward to me. I made a decision at that point in time that moving forward, I was going to be a lot more transparent, and that they actually can handle it and they want it, and they're going to probably come back with some really incredible solutions, and that I need to be okay with showing my vulnerability. And so from that point forward, I've been honest about everything, very, very transparent, and been aware of how I'm showing up as a leader on my good days, on my bad days, and making sure there is some consistency there. You can find the book on Amazon. So it's called Just Go With It, Navigating the Ups and Downs in Entrepreneurship. And my personal website for speaking, or if you want to check out any of my ink columns, is mandy-gilbert.com. And Creative Niche is, it's creativeniche.com.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.